Today, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer invited the CEO of Discord, as well as the CEOs of other platforms, to testify on the radicalization of online forum users. The app in focus for its connection to the alleged Charlie Kirk assassin.
Discord, the platform ownership, has been working with our lawful process, and we are obtaining materials from them on a rolling basis.
Let's bring in House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. Chairman, thank you for being with us. This is such an important topic. Obviously, the gravity of it going up enormously with Charlie Kirk's assassination. You invited these groups to testify. It's not a subpoena situation. What are you hoping to learn?
Well, we have a lot of questions. There appears to be a pattern emerging where many of the crimes committed, the high-profile crimes committed by younger people, they were all communicating on these various platforms. And we're concerned that there's some type of radicalization effort out there. We don't know that the platforms have any liability, but we are concerned, and we want to know if there are things Congress can do without limiting speech that would help us identify some of these radicalized groups that are nothing more than terror groups that have a bad agenda, an evil agenda, and something that we certainly don't want to see replicated. We don't want the criminals to continue to communicate freely on these platforms if there's a way that Congress can identify them beforehand.
Yeah, and you mentioned the importance of free speech as well. So how do you balance that? Because obviously we saw under the previous administration the censorship, the putting the thumb on the scales of telling these tech companies what to allow and what to not to allow on their platforms. So how do we balance this oversight that seems to be needed while also not trampling on free speech?
That's a great question. We hope to determine the answer to that in the hearing. This isn't a hearing where we're going to bring the CEOs and berate them on national television. We sincerely hope to find solutions to the problems. And I don't think any two members on the Oversight Committee, regardless of party, have an agreement on what can be done. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. And remember, Republicans especially, we've lived through the censorship days of the Biden regime and the deep state actors that did everything in their ability to limit conservatives from COVID all the way to the presidential election. We don't ever want to repeat that. But at the same time, we deserve to represent our constituents and see if there's anything that can be done to identify this criminal activity before it gets out of hand.
Well, a hearing where the politicians listen sounds like a really novel thing. I'm excited for that. I want to ask you about this. You're investigating, along with Congresswoman Luna, left-wing groups who are fueling civil unrest in the U.S. Los Angeles is one of the most recent examples. Talk about who you're looking into and what you're looking for here.
Well, certainly there are a lot of left-wing groups that are funding these dark money organizations that are paying for protesters. They're paying to disrupt things. They're paying to try to, in our opinion, harm conservatives and the conservative cause. The usual suspects, obviously, are the George Soroses of the world, and then you've got Congressman Dan Goldman, who inherited the Levi Jeans fortune, who has a couple of charitable organizations and entities that we believe fund some of these outside dark money groups. So we're going to try to follow the money. That's my favorite type of investigation in the Oversight Committee, where we can subpoena bank records and follow the money, and that's what we're going to do in this case.
Now, are they inciting violence, or how far does some of this go in terms of the funding?
Well, our fear is that there's been a government aspect of this funding as well, that some of these government agencies were funding some of these groups through their grant processes. That's something we're going to look into. Obviously, we're going to look into billionaire donors that we know have a history of funding activities such as this, and we're just going to try to see where the money takes us and go from there, bring people in, ask questions, and see if they're in violation of the laws. A lot of these organizations that fund these are set up to where they don't pay taxes on that money.
Right.
We believe that they're potentially committing financial crimes in their quest to influence politics while at the same time writing that off on their taxes.
3 of the most dangerous letters in the English language right now are NGO, because you don't know where the money's coming from and what it's going to, and it's very murky. I want to ask you about the D.C. crime bill. The House has passed a number now of crime bills in D.C. meant to do things like keep that jurisdiction from reducing sentences, bringing down the age for going after juveniles who commit serious crimes. What are these bills going to mean for D.C., and can they become a model for other places around the U.S.?
Well, look, we've tried to sit back and let the Democrats and the Democrat leadership tell us that they're going to get crime under control, and the only thing that happens is crime continues to get worse. The president did the right thing. He sent the National Guard in, and guess what? That eliminated crime for 2 weeks, but it's not sustainable to keep the National Guard in. So we've worked with the White House on trying to identify the problems with crime, what led to the crime, and they've passed ridiculous criminal justice reform bills where they treat a juvenile as a 25-year-old. If you're 19 to 25, you're tried as a juvenile, so you just get a slap on the wrist. So obviously, juvenile crimes are on the rise. Then they've gone so far as to pass laws saying that law enforcement in Washington, D.C. could not pursue a criminal. I mean, just they've done everything in their ability to tie the hands of law enforcement while at the same time protecting criminals. And Republicans have had enough, and that's why we're passing legislation through the House to make Washington, D.C. safe again.
Yeah, and you see those numbers there, 52% of the carjackings juveniles. So very concerning stuff. Chairman James Comer, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.